Hello everyone, I'm Claire from Susan's family. Today, I'll show you how to make the Forest Series Joyful Breeze Intarsia blanket. This blanket consists of 3 parts, the main piece, edging, and lining. The main piece has 8 types of fabric pieces. Each fabric piece has a different number of color schemes. To make knitting more convenient, we will knit each column of pieces separately. And for each column, you only need to cast on once. For the rest of the pieces, directly knit the first row at the end of the previous piece, with each piece connecting at the beginning and ending. After completing the column pieces, bind off correspondingly. Then connect each column of pieces. Once the main piece is completed, add the edging around the edges. And finally, sew on the lining on the wrong side. Please watch my demonstration of the specific knitting method. First, learn the method for the main piece. I will use the second column piece as an example. Let me explain the method. Look at the pattern chart. Each vertical line in the chart represents a knit stitch. To make the chart less dense, the empty squares in the chart also represent knit stitches. From the right side, you see the texture of knit stitches. It's a stockinette stitch pattern. There's something important to note. The piece is worked back and forth. The chart reflects the texture on the right side of the piece. On the wrong side, you need to work the corresponding stitch according to the key. Let's take another look at the color scheme of the first piece, E, in this column. Here, one square represents one stitch. The chart uses different colored squares to distinguish the corresponding color schemes. Here, E1 indicates to work according to the first color scheme. Please watch me demonstrate the specific method. When you actually knit, you will knit using 2 strands of yarn held together. Let's take a look. One ball of yarn has 2 ends, one from the center and one from the outside. You can hold these 2 ends together for knitting. To make it clearer for everyone, I am using a cotton yarn for demonstration. The color is random. The fabric piece is knitted using a circular needle. For specific yarn details, the color schemes and the circular needle size, please refer to the detail pages and the pattern chart of our product. In the following explanation, unless otherwise specified, when I mention 1 strand of yarn, it actually refers to 2 strands of yarn in the actual work. I won't repeat this again. Let's first get to know the circular needle. The tail is connected. The tip of the needle is the same as a straight needle. Make a slip knot with the yarn. Leave the tail slightly longer. This makes it convenient for weaving in the ends at the end. Hold one side of the needle with your left hand. Insert into the loop. Gently tighten it. This is the first stitch. Consider this stitch as a knit stitch. Hold the needle with your right hand as if holding a pen. Pick up the other side of the needle. Wrap the yarn tail around your right pinky finger. Go around once. Gently press the yarn with your ring finger and middle finger. Place this yarn between your index finger and middle finger. This is the proper posture for using circular needle for knitting. Next, place the right needle above the yarn. Insert the right needle from top to bottom into the loop on the left needle. Use your right index finger to wrap the yarn over and draw the loop through. Place the loop on the left needle. Don't pull the yarn too tight. Otherwise, it will be hard to pick up stitches later. This is the second stitch. Continue casting on. Place the right needle above the yarn tail. Insert the right needle from top to bottom between these 2 stitches. Yarn over. Draw the loop through. Place the loop on the left needle. This is the third stitch. Note, don't pull the yarn too tight. It's okay if it's slightly loose. Continue casting on. Insert the needle. Yarn over and draw through. This is the fourth stitch. Let's take a look. Each insertion is between 2 loops. Continue cable cast on. Refer to the chart for the specific number of stitches. 5, 6, 46, 47. As you can see, this is what we have after casting on. Casting on is the first row. Now we will work the second row. This row is worked from the right side. The chart is read from right to left. The chart shows vertical symbols. These indicate knit stitches. Start with the first stitch. Insert the right needle from top to bottom into the first loop. Note that you insert into the loop, not between the two loops. Yarn over and draw through, while releasing the loop on the left needle. One knit stitch is complete. Continue with the second stitch. Insert into the loop. Yarn over and draw through. Another knit stitch is completed. You can see that there is a braid-like texture. Continue knitting to finish this row. This completes the second row. If the last loop is large, you can gently tighten the starting yarn tail. This side is the right side of the piece. Next, we work on row 3. This row is worked on the wrong side. The chart is read from left to right. When working on the wrong side, you need to work the corresponding stitches according to the key. Turn the piece over. The third row in the chart are empty squares. Actually, this side has a texture made entirely of purl stitches. You can see bumps like these. Purl every stitches in this row. Place the right needle under the thread. Insert from the bottom up into the loop on the left needle. Wrap the yarn and draw through. Release the loop from the left needle. One purl stitch is complete. Continue and purl another stitch. Insert from the bottom up into the loop. Wrap the yarn and draw through. Release the loop. Another purl stitch is complete. This row consists of purl symbols. Purl all stitches. Keep going until you finish this row. The third row is completed. Move on to the fourth row. This row is worked on the right side, and you need to switch colors to create a jacquard effect. In fact, each motif is knitted with 2 colors. They are alternated. For convenience while knitting, we use both hands to manage the yarn. Turn the work piece over. The yarn being used is called color 1. Hold it in the right hand. Knit 8 stitches with color 1 first. Then knit 1 stitch with color 2. Take out color 2. The color choice here is random. Tie a knot with color 2. Leave the yarn tail slightly longer. This makes it easier to weave in the ends later. Pull tight. Then move the knot to the base of color 1. Note: the knot for joining the yarn should be on the wrong side of the piece. Do not let it show on the right side. For any future instances where you need to join yarn, follow this method. Next, hang color 1 on the right hand. Hold color 2 with the left hand. Wrap color 2 around the left little finger. Pass it between the middle finger and index finger. Place this yarn above the index finger. Hold the left needle with the remaining fingers of the left hand. Then knit 1 stitch using color 2. Note that color 2 should be below color 1. Insert the right needle into the loop. With the left hand, bring the yarn upwards. Place it on the left side of the needle. Yarn over with the right needle. Pull the loop through. Release the loop on the left needle. 1 knit stitch is complete. Stretch the fabric. Then knit 9 stitches with color 1. There are more stitches. We need carry color 2 along while knitting. Knit 3 stitches with color 1 first. While knitting, color 2 is below color 1. For the 4th stitch, carry color 2 once. Insert the needle into the loop first. Place color 2 to the right of the needle. Continue with the right hand. Yarn over. Pull the loop through. Finish this stitch. You can check the wrong side of the fabric. Color 2 has been carried once. Knit 3 stitches with color 1. Note that color 2 remains below color 1. For the next stitch, carry color 2 once. Insert into the loop. Place color 2 to the right of the needle. Yarn over and pull through with the right hand. Finish this stitch. Carrying the yarn is complete. Continue and finish the last stitch with color 1. Stretch the fabric piece. Knit 1 stitch with color 2. Insert into the loop. Wrap color 2 once. Yarn over and pull through. Another knit stitch with color 2 is completed. Continue knitting 9 stitches with color 1. Knit 3 stitches first. Carry color 2 for the 4th stitch. Knit another 3 stitches. Knit 1 stitch and carry color 2. Knit the last stitch. Continue knitting 1 stitch with color 2. Nine stitches with color 1. Pay attention to carrying along color 2. After completing, knit 1 stitch with color 2. Knit the remaining stitches with color 1. When knitting, we need to carry along color 2 one more time. Insert into the loop. Place color 2 on the right side of the needle. Complete this stitch with color 1. When knitting the next stitch, keep color 2 below color 1. This carried color 2 once. Knit the remaining stitches with color 1. The 4th row is completed. Next, work the 5th row. This row is worked on the wrong side. Turn the fabric piece over. Purl 5 stitches with color 1 first. Then purl 2 purl stitches with color 2. Color 2 is above the needle. The right needle goes from bottom to top. Inserting into the loops on the left needle, the left hand moves from top to bottom, wrapping the loop around the right needle. Then pulling it through. Release the loop. 1 purl stitch with color 2 is complete. Purl another stitch with color 2. Insert into the loop. Yarn over and pull through with the left hand. Another purl stitch with color 2 is complete. Purl 3 stitches with color 1. Note that color 2 should always be underneath color 1 while working. Stretch the fabric piece after completing. Purl 2 stitches with color 2. Continue purling 3 stitches with color 1 and 2 stitches with color 2, alternating in this pattern. Keep working until there are 5 loops remaining on the left side. Stretch the fabric piece every few stitches. Now we've reached this position. From here on, use color 1 to purl. Carry along color 2 one more time. Insert into the loop. Place color 2 on the right side of the needle. Yarn over with color 1 from above color 2. Pick up. This carried color 2 once. Continue using color 1 to purl the remaining stitches. Note that color 2 should always be below color 1. The 5th row is completed. Move on to the 6th row. Work from the right side. Start with knitting 4 stitches in color 1. Then knit 1 stitch in color 2. One stitch in color 1. Knit 2 stitches in color 2. 1 stitch in color 1. Continue knitting 2 stitches in color 2 and 1 stitch in color 1. Then knit 1 stitch in color 2 and 1 stitch in color 1. When alternating stitches, color 1 is on top, color 2 is underneath. Their positions remain the same. Stretch the fabric every few stitches to prevent the fabric from curling. Continue following this method. Refer to the chart to finish this row. Remember not to forget to carry along color 2 at the end. The 6th row is now complete. Once this row is completed, you can lay the fabric piece flat, measure the width, and compare it with the finished product. If there is a significant difference, you need to adjust your knit tension and re-knit. The 7th and 8th rows are simple. Just alternate stitches. Don't forget to carry along the yarn at the end. You can refer to the chart and complete them by yourself. I won't demonstrate this part. Next, work row 9. Use color 1 for the first 8 stitches. And start using color 2 from the 9th stitch. The distance from the previous carrying yarn position is not far, just knit directly. Note that the transition yarn should not be too tight to prevent the fabric piece from curling. Row 9 is now complete. Let's look at the pattern here. Hold the yarn in both hands. When alternating, the right hand holds color 1, and the left hand holds color 2. Color 2 always below the color 1. When the stitch count is greater than 5, carry the yarn every 3 stitches. When the stitch count is less than 5, no need to carry the yarn. Remember to stretch the fabric piece as you work, to prevent the fabric from curling. When knitting back and forth, after finishing the corresponding stitches in color 2, you need to carry color 2 one more time at the end. Continue following this method. Refer to the chart, and keep knitting until you finish row 44. I won't demonstrate this part. During the knitting process, if you make a mistake, you need to tink. The method to undo stitches is as follows. Take the left straight needle and insert it from top to bottom into the braid below the rightmost stitch. Then release the stitch on the right straight needle. This takes 1 stitch. If you make a mistake, undo the stitches using this method until you reach the correct position. I will continue to demonstrate the method for row 45 with this small sample. Here, I only demonstrate the method. The middle rows are omitted. This row does not require color 2. When knitting the next piece, you also don't need to use color 2. Leave a yarn tail of about 10 centimeters in length. Cut it off. This row is only knitted with color 1. Continue knitting them down. Row 45 is completed. The remaining 2 rows are all knitted with color 1. Please complete them by yourself. I won't demonstrate that. After completing it, leave a 10 centimeter yarn tail from color 1 and cut it off. Piece E1 is completed. Now let's weave in the ends. Thread the yarn tail from color 2 into the sewing needle. Weave in the ends following the texture on the wrong side. To prevent the yarn tail from coming loose, you can take one of the threads and exit it from an adjacent position. Tie a knot with the 2 threads. Weave in some more. For the joining yarn tail, simply weave it in following the texture on the wrong side. Leave the starting yarn tail and the yarn tail from color 1 for now. Next, we will knit piece F1. This means following the first color scheme and referring to the schema chart for piece F. Start by working row 1. Note that this row is worked on the right side of the piece. Take the corresponding yarn. Refer this yarn as color 1. Attach the new yarn to the yarn tail from where you fastened off on the previous piece. Move the knot down to the end of the yarn tail. Pay attention not to let this knot show on the right side of the piece. Work the first 3 rows with color 1. Complete these rows. For the 4th row, attach color 2, using the same method. Refer to the chart going forward. Alternate between color 1 and color 2 stitch by stitch. Finish the last stitch with color 2. Don't forget to secure the contrast yarn. The 4th row is done. For the 5th and 6th rows, alternate stitch by stitch for jacquard. The method is the same as before. Don't forget to secure color 2 at the end. Refer to the chart to complete them on your own. I won't demonstrate it. Work the 7th row is worked with color 1, but the next row on the right side will need color 2. While working this row, you need to bring color 2 to the corresponding position. Knit 5 stitches with color 1 first. Now we're at the position for color 2. For each subsequent 3 stitches, bring color 2 along. Continue until there are 12 loops remaining on the left side. After every few stitches, stretch the fabric piece. Now we're at this position. Continue with color 1 to complete the remaining stitches. No need to carry color 2. The 7th row is completed. Move on to the 8th row. Purl 12 stitches with color 1 first. Then purl 2 stitches with color 2. Follow with 7 stitches in color 1, with a larger stitch count. You need to carry color 2. Purl 3 stitches first. On the 4th stitch, carry the yarn. Place color 2 on the right side of the needle. Bring the yarn over color 2. Purl 1 stitch with color 1. This completes 1 yarn carry. Purl 3 stitches with color 1. Two stitches with color 2. Then purl 9 stitches with color 1. You need to carry color 2. Purl 3 stitches first. On the fourth stitch, carry the yarn. Knit 3 more stitches. Carry the yarn. Purl the last stitch. Continue with 5 stitches in color 2. No need to carry the yarn. Finish by purling the remaining stitches with color 1. Don't forget to secure the contrast yarn. The 8th row is completed. The method for the 9th row is simple. Follow the chart. When knitting consecutive stitches with color 1, if the number of stitches is less than or equal to 5, just work as usual. If the number of consecutive stitches with color 1 is more than 5 stitches, you need to carry color 2. Finally, don't forget to secure the contrast yarn. You can finish them on your own. I won't demonstrate that. Move on to the 10th row. Start by purling 10 stitches with color 1. Then purl 6 stitches with color 2. You need to carry color 1. Purl 3 stitches with color 2 first. For the 4th stitch, carry the yarn. Insert the right needle into the loop. Then bring color 1 from in front of color 2, placing it below the right needle. Bring color 2 upwards over the right needle. Then return color 1 to the right side, in front of color 2. Pick up the loop on the right needle. This completes one yarn carry. Purl the remaining 2 stitches with color 2. Stretch the fabric piece and the carried yarn. Then purl 4 stitches with color 1. And 4 stitches with color 2. Since the stitch count is small, there's no need to carry the yarn. Then purl 8 stitches with color 1. Carry color 2 after every 3 stitches. After completing this, alternate one stitch with color 2 and one stitch with color 1. Repeat this twice. Then purl one stitch with color 2. Continue with the loops using color 1. Carry along color 2 once. The 10th row is completed. Next, work on the 11th row. Start with 9 knit stitches using color 1. Then alternate one stitch with color 1 and one stitch with color 2. Repeat this 3 times. After completing this, knit one stitch with color 2. Then knit 7 stitches with color 1. Carry color 2 in the middle. Stretch the fabric piece. Then knit 4 stitches with color 2 and 4 stitches with color 1. After that, knit 6 stitches with color 2. Start with 3 stitches. And for the 4th stitch, carry color 1. Insert the straight needle into the loop, and bring color 1 from the front of color 2 up to the right needle. Then, with your left hand, bring color 2 up from below to the right needle. Next, bring color 1 with your right hand around the right needle from below back to the right side. And complete this stitch. You can check the wrong side of the fabric piece, where color 1 has been brought to the correct position. Knit the remaining 2 stitches with color 2. And then use color 1 to complete the remaining loops. Note to carry along color 2 at the end. The 11th row is completed. Continue with the 12th row. First, purl 10 stitches with color 1. Then purl 6 stitches with color 2. Purl the first 3 stitches. And for the 4th stitch, carry along color 1 into the loop, bringing color 1 from in front of color 2 to below the right needle, and place color 2 onto the right needle. Then bring color 1 back to the right side. Pick up with the right needle. This carry along color 1 once. Then finish the remaining 2 stitches. Continue following the chart to complete the remaining stitches. And don't forget to carry along the yarn at the end. Row 12 is completed. Now move on to row 13. First, knit 7 stitches with color 1. Then knit 11 stitches with color 2. With more stitches, you need to carry along color 1. First, knit 3 stitches with color 2. Then for the 4th stitch, carry color 1 once. Insert into the loop. First, hang color 1 and color 2 on the right needle. Then return color 1 to the right side. And complete this stitch. This carry along color 1 once. Then knit 3 stitches with color 2. And carry along the yarn once. Knit the remaining 3 stitches with color 2. Stretch the fabric piece. Then knit 6 stitches with color 1. Carry along color 2 in the middle. After completing that, knit 2 stitches with color 2. And 5 stitches with color 1. Continue knitting 6 stitches with color 2. First knit 3 stitches. Carry along color 1 once. Then complete the remaining 2 stitches. Then finish the remaining loops with color 1. Don't forget to carry the contrast yarn at the end. The 13th row is completed. Moving on to the 14th row to the 16th row. Follow these steps. Refer to the pattern. I will not repeat the demonstration. I'll use this small sample to demonstrate the 17th row. Let's look at the chart. Knit 21 stitches with color 1. The distance to where you need color 2 is farther. Knit to the position where you need color 2. Then, as you knit, carry color 2 to the corresponding position. The method for carrying the yarn is the same as before. After completing, refer to the pattern to knit the corresponding jacquard design. Note that when the stitch count is more than 5, you need to carry the yarn. Finally, secure the contrast yarn. The 17th row is completed. Continue working the 18th row. Switch colors and work according to the pattern. Keep working until the last stitch, where you use color 2. Here, I have already knitted ahead. You can see that there is a longer distance to the beginning of the next row, which is knitted with color 2. When working the remaining loops, you need to bring color 2 to the corresponding position. Now we've reached this position. Continue using color 1 for the purling. No need to carry color 2. The 18th row is completed. The following knitting method is simpler when actually knitting, while focusing on the current color. You also need to consider the color positions for the next few rows. When you encounter the distance to the start of the next row is far, you need to carry this yarn. Bring it to the position where you need to knit. There are no specific requirements for where to carry the yarn. You can arrange it based on the actual situation. Repeat this process, following the chart, and finish the remaining part of fabric piece F1. Note that after completing row 44, although the next piece will use color 2, the distance is far apart. Here, follow the previous method to cut the yarn. After everything is completed, cut the yarn for color 1. Secure the yarn tails. The method is simple. I won't demonstrate it. The corresponding part of fabric piece F1 is now explained. Next, we move on to knitting fabric piece G1, which means following the first color scheme. Knit according to the chart for fabric piece G. Start by knitting the first row, at the position where you previously cut the yarn. Join the yarn and continue knitting. The subsequent knitting method is simple. Start joining yarn and knitting the jacquard pattern from row 4. Pay attention to securing color too. At the end of each row, based on your actual situation, follow the method demonstrated earlier. Refer to the pattern, and complete the remaining pieces in this column. I won't demonstrate this part. During the knitting process, you might run out of yarn. In such cases, you need to join the yarn. I will continue using this sample to demonstrate the method for joining the yarn. Take the new ball of yarn and combine the 2 yarn tails from the center and the outside. Join the new yarn to the base of the old yarn tail. I will continue demonstrating with 1 cotton yarn. Then, refer to the pattern. Continue knitting downward. Once the piece is completed, weave in the yarn tail along the wrong side of the fabric's texture. Secure it properly. After completing all the pieces in this column, bind off stitches from the wrong side. I will continue demonstrating with this sample. First, purl 2 stitches. After completing, hold the right needle. Slide the loop on the right onto the left loop. You can pick up the loop from behind. This bind off 1 stitch. Next, bind off the second stitch. Purl 1 stitch. Pass the loop on the right over the left loop. Continue with binding off the third stitch. Purl 1 stitch. Slide the loop on the right onto the left loop. Repeat this process, continuing down to finish the rest. When bind off, pay attention. Don't pull the loops too tight, and don't make them too loose, to avoid an uneven piece. When you have 1 loop remaining, leave a yarn tail about 10 centimeters long. Then cut the yarn. Enlarge the loop. Remove the circular needle. Thread the yarn tail through the loop. Pull tight. This complete the bind off. For any remaining tails, weave them along the wrong side's texture. This completes the second piece. The method for the other pieces is the same. Let me emphasize this again. When actually knitting, while focusing on the current color, you also need to consider the color positions of the previous and next rows. Refer to the pattern and complete the remaining pieces. I won't demonstrate this part. After completing the pieces, join them together. I'll use a few solid colored swatches to demonstrate the joining method. You can see that the edges of the pieces are slightly curled. This is normal. To make sewing easier, You can iron the pieces on the wrong side. After ironing, proceed with joining. Take out the first column piece and the second column piece. The first column piece is on the left side. Place the starting point at the bottom. Joining these two sides together. Take a longer yarn tail. The color of the yarn tail should match the pattern. Note that you need to use 2 threads combined for sewing. I will continue to demonstrate with 1 cotton yarn. Thread the needle with the yarn tail. Here, to make it easier to align, we start from the beginning with the second fabric piece. Insert the needle from the wrong side of the right fabric piece. Come out below the first column of braids. Right here. Leaving about 10 centimeters of yarn tail behind. Then insert the needle into the left fabric piece. Pick up the horizontal strand. Of the bottommost braid of the second fabric piece. And come out. Which is here. Then insert the needle at this entry position on the right. Insert the needle. Pick up the horizontal strand above. And come out. Gently tighten. Being careful not to pull out the reserved yarn tail. Continue to insert the needle into the left fabric piece at the previous entry position. Pick up the horizontal strand and come out. Then insert the needle on the right at the entry position. Pick up the horizontal strand and come out. Gently tighten. Repeat this process, picking up the edge loops of the fabric piece. The horizontal strand to sewing down. After every few stitches, gently tighten the sewing thread. When you reach a certain length, if you find the thread is not enough, insert the sewing needle at the next entry position. Insert it. Bring the remaining thread to the wrong side of the piece. Then cut another piece of thread and insert it into the needle. And bring the needle out from the wrong side near where the thread comes out. Pick up the loop. Pull the thread through. Leave about 10 centimeters of thread. Then insert the needle from this entry position. Continue sewing using the previous method. After sewing 4 to 5 stitches, gently tighten the thread. Tie these 2 threads in a simple knot. The thread is now joined. Adjust slightly following the texture on the wrong side. Continue sewing the remaining part downward. Adjust the position while sewing to prevent sewing crooked. During the sewing process, if you encounter a pattern that doesn't align, you can sew by picking up 2 strands of yarn. Adjust the pattern to align. Then take the remaining yarn tail and bring it to the wrong side of the fabric. Pick a nearby loop to tie a knot and secure it. Slightly trim the yarn tail. Cut off the excess. Next, sew together the rest fabric pieces, starting with the first piece. Rotate the piece, and place the cast-on side at the top. Take another piece of yarn. Thread it into the sewing needle. Insert the needle near the position where the yarn tail was left. Pick up a loop to transition. Then come out from the position where the yarn tail was left. Sew them together using the previous method. Remember to tying these 2 yarn tails together on the wrong side, after sewing a few stitches. Weave in the ends. Continue sewing the remaining part. Bring the yarn tail to the wrong side. Tie a double knot. Weave in the yarn tail. Trim off the excess. As you can see, this is what it looks like after sewing two pieces joined. Repeat this process to join the rest of the pieces. The position of the fabric piece. Please refer to the diagram or the finished product. The method is relatively simple, so I won't demonstrate it here. As you can see, this is what it looks like after joining all pieces together. The side edge of the first column of fabric pieces is the vertical edge of the blanket. The cast-on sides and the end sides form the horizontal edge of the blanket. The corner where the vertical and horizontal edges meet is the corner of the blanket. After completing the main part, add the edging. Let's look at the finished product. Work around the main piece, picking up stitches and knitting in a counterclockwise direction. A horizontal line in the chart represents a purl stitch. The stitch pattern here is single rib, which means one knit stitch, alternating with one purl stitch to create the texture. Use two circular needles to work in rounds. Follow the stitch pattern on the chart. Increases are needed at the four corners. The increase method used is the backward loop cast on. Please watch me demonstrate the specific knitting method. I will continue to demonstrate using this small sample. First, pick up stitches for the first round. Take out the corresponding yarn. Make a loose knot. Leave a longer yarn tail. Hold the yarn with your right hand, with the blanket's right side facing you. Have the cast-on edge at the top. You can see the starting point. It's a series of braids. Find the middle fabric piece, the top right V-shaped braid. Take out the circular needle. Insert into the center of the braid. Pick up the knotted loop. Pull it out. Adjust the loop size. This is the first stitch of the edging. Next, insert the needle into the center above the left column of braids. Yarn over. Pull it out. This is the second stitch. Continue using this method. Pick up the corresponding braids of this piece. When you reach the sewing position, you can check the stitch count. It should be 2 stitches fewer than the cast-on stitches of each piece. Skip the sewing position. Continue picking up stitches above the left side of the piece. Continue using this method. Pick up the remaining piece of this edge. Now you have reached the corner position. You can first check the stitch count. The total number of stitches picked up should be odd. Place a stitch marker on the needle to mark it. Continue picking up one stitch along the horizontal edge of the piece. This stitch will be the corner stitch for the blanket. Now you have reached the vertical edge of the blanket. You can see that the vertical edge will have a row of braids like this. Each row corresponds to a braid. We insert the needle into the braid to pick up the stitch. The first stitch is now picked up. Continue picking up one stitch per braid. Pick up 2 more stitches. Skip 1 braid. From the next braid, pick up 3 stitches corresponding to each braid. Continue down, picking up 3 stitches. For every 4 braids, pick up the stitches along the vertical edge using this method. The total number of stitches picked up along the vertical edge should match the chart. Note, the corner does not count as a stitch. The total number of stitches picked up along the vertical edge should be an odd number. After completing, place a stitch marker on the right needle to mark it. Then, on the horizontal edge, pick up 1 stitch as the corner. Now, on the other side of the horizontal edge, which is the position where each row of the fabric piece is bound off, pick up stitches above each row of braids. In the same way, the number of stitches picked up on each piece is 2 stitches less than the cast-on stitches. Do not pick up stitches at the sewing position, picking up the 2 pieces. When completed, place the picked up stitches in the middle of the circular needle. The actual number of stitches will be larger. Note that you don't lose any stitches at the ends. Take out another circular needle. Then, continue. Start picking up from the right side of the third piece. Follow the same method as before. Pick up the remaining part of the blanket. Remember to place a marker on the right side of each corner stitch. As you can see, this is what the small sample looks like after picking up the stitches along the edge. The first round is completed. Continue with the second round. This round requires switching colors to create the jacquard pattern. Take out color 2. Attach the new yarn to the base of color 1. Start with the first circular needle. Take the end on the left side of the yarn tail in your left hand. Place the other end in your right hand. Leave the other circular needle aside for now. Make sure not to drop any stitches. Hang yarn 1 with your right hand. Hang yarn 2 with your left hand. Purl 1 stitch with yarn 2. First, bring yarn 2 above the needle. Purl 1 stitch. This is the first stitch. Pull it tight. Then knit 1 knit stitch with yarn 1. First, bring yarn 2 back underneath the needle. Note: when switching from a purl stitch to a knit stitch, make sure to bring the yarn back, otherwise, you'll add extra stitches. While knitting, yarn 2 should be underneath yarn 1. This is the second stitch. Purl 1 stitch with yarn 2. First, bring yarn 2 to the top. When purl 1 stitch, yarn 2 should always be on top. This is the third stitch. Then knit 1 with yarn 1. First, bring yarn 2 to the back. Knit with yarn 1. Let's look at the pattern here. It's all 1 purl stitch with yarn 2, alternating with 1 knit stitch with yarn 1. This stitch pattern is called single ribbing. Note: when switching from purl to knit stitches, make sure to bring the yarn to the back. While knitting with yarn 1, yarn 2 should always be below. Continue working this way until you reach the stitch marker position. Now we're at this point. Refer to the chart. You need to work a backward loop cast on with yarn 1. Place your right index finger above yarn 1. Yarn over clockwise. Put this loop on the straight needle. Gently tighten. This completed one backward loop cast on. Then move the stitch marker to the right needle. Work one knit stitch with yarn 1 at the corner position. Follow with another backward loop cast on using yarn 1. This completes the increase for this corner. Continue working purl 1 stitch with yarn 2. Work knit 1 stitch with yarn 1. Follow this pattern. Continue until the next stitch marker position. Now at this position, start with a backward loop cast on using yarn 1. Move the stitch marker. Continue with 1 knit stitch using yarn 1. And 1 backward loop cast on. Then follow the pattern of purl 1 with yarn 2. And knit 1 with yarn 1. Complete the remaining stitches on the circular needle. After completing, move on to work the stitches on other circular needle. Place the needle with the yarn tail on the left side in your left hand. And hold the other end of the circular needle with your right hand. Continue working according to the previous pattern. Pay attention to pull tight the first stitch to ensure the fabric looks neat. Continue working according to the previous method. Note that you need increased stitches at the corner positions on both sides once you finish stitches on this circular needle. The second round is completed. Move on to the third round. Switch to the first circular needle. Continue purl 1 stitch with color 2. Pull the first stitch tight. Knit 1 stitch with color 1. Follow the texture. Continue work according to this pattern, until 1 loop before the stitch marker position. You are now at this position. With color 1, knit 1 stitch in the increase loop. Then, with color 2, work a backward loop cast on. Move the stitch marker. With color 1, knit 1 stitch. With color 2, work 1 backward loop cast on. Then, with color 1, knit 1 stitch to the increase loop. The increases for this corner are completed. Continue working the single ribbing until you reach the next stitch marker. At this position, work 1 backward loop cast on with color 2. Move the stitch marker. Knit 1 stitch with color 1. Work 1 backward loop cast on with color 2. Knit 1 stitch with color 1. Continue knitting the single ribbing until you finish the stitches on this circular needle. After completing, switch to another circular needle. Pay attention to pulling the first stitch tight. The third round is completed. You won't need color 2 anymore. Leave a 10 cm yarn tail, and cut the yarn. Then take out the corresponding color 2 for next round. Attach the new yarn at the base of color 1. The edging method is relatively simple. Keep working using 2 circular needles. Use color 2 and color 1 to alternate working the single rib pattern on the horizontal and vertical edges. At the corner position, work 1 backward loop cast on each side of the corner stitch. Refer to the chart while knitting. Use the corresponding yarn to knit. When finish 1 circular needle, switch to another circular needle to knit the remaining half round. Make sure to pull the first stitch tight. After switching the circular needle, the last 2 rounds are using color 1 to knit. The method is the same as before. Refer to the chart for details. Complete the remaining rounds of the edging. I won't demonstrate that. After completing, let's bind off. Bind off the edging on the right side. I'll demonstrate this with a small sample. Knit 2 stitches. After completing, and slip the right side loop over the left side loop. This bind off 1 stitch. Then bind off the second stitch. Knit 1 stitch. And slip the right side loop over the left side loop. You can see that the bind off method is the same as on the wrong side. Just knit all stitches. Continue binding off the remaining loops. When binding off, pay attention. Don't pull the loops too tight to prevent the fabric from curling. After binding off 1 circular needle, continue binding off stitches on the other circular needle. When you have 1 loop remaining, leave a 15 cm yarn tail and cut the yarn. Enlarge the loop. Pull the yarn through and tighten. Thread the yarn tail into the sewing needle. Insert the needle through the left side stitch. Bring it back from the yarn tail position. Tighten. This secures the yarn tail. Weave in the remaining yarn tail. Tie a double knot. Trim off the excess. Follow the texture on the wrong side, and weave in all the ends. The method is simple, so I won't demonstrate it. This completes the edging. Finally, secure the lining on the wrong side of the blanket. Before securing it, you need to wash and iron the lining fabric from the kit. Wash to remove any excess dye, and pre-shrink it. Then, on the wrong side of the blanket, iron the blanket to set its shape. After that, sew them together. I'll use a small sample to demonstrate the securing method. Place the wrong side of the blanket facing up and lay it flat. Place the seam of the blanket pieces horizontally. Then, lay the lining fabric flat over the blanket. The lining fabric should cover the entire blanket. The actual blanket is larger. To make sewing easier, you can first use pins to secure the lining fabric to the blanket. If you don't have pins, you can use safety pins instead. You should choose many positions for securing. After securing it well, trim the lining first. There are no specific requirements for the trimming position. The lining fabric should be at least 3 centimeters longer than the first round of the edging on all sides. Then, sew the lining fabric along the joining edges of the column pieces. Finally, secure it to the edging. Use the whip stitch method to secure the middle part. First, fold the corresponding lining on the horizontal edge, along the edge of the edging inward. Make the lining edge roughly level with the first round of the edging. The kit includes sewing thread. Cut a piece of thread about 1 meter long. The length here is random. Thread the needle. Tie a knot with both ends. Start by sewing the top part. Insert the needle into any joining position of the column pieces, close to the edging. Insert the needle. Pull out part of the thread. Insert into the loop on the end. Gently pull to tighten. Fold the edge of the lining neatly. The tail end is now secured on the blanket. Next, come out from the corresponding position of the lining. Insert from the right side of this entry position. About 0.5 centimeters away. Pick up the joining position. Come out on the left side. Space it about 2 centimeters from the entry position. When sewing, be mindful not to prick your hand with the needle. Make sure the sewing needle does not bring the thread to the right side of the blanket, otherwise, it will affect the blanket's appearance. Gently pull to tighten. Continue inserting from the right side of the entry position, about 0.5 centimeters away. Pick up the joining position. Come out about 2 centimeters from the previous entry position. Repeat this process, sew to the end. When sewing, note that the lining should be laid flat over the main piece. Adjust the position as you sew, prevent sewing crooked. If the yarn tail is not long enough, follow the method demonstrated earlier. Insert the yarn tail from the wrong side. Tie the yarn tail and the new yarn in a double knot to secure. Sew the remaining part. Sew until you reach the left side near the edging. Fold the edge of the lining on this side inward. Finally, insert the sewing needle to the wrong side. Pick up loops and tie knots to secure. Trim off the excess. This way, top part of the blanket and the lining are secured. Repeat this process, secure the lining with remaining sections. I won't demonstrate further. After securing the middle part, seam lining with the edging. Cut a piece of thread and thread the needle. Tie a knot at the end of the thread. Here, I have already prepared it. Start by sewing the horizontal edge. Align the edge of the lining with the first round of the edging. Roughly align the lining. Insert the needle from the edge of the lining. Thread it through the reserved loop. Slightly tighten. Whip stitch method will be used here. Insert the needle into the remaining loop after picking up the stitch. Continue to insert into the corresponding position on the edge of the lining. Slightly tighten. Leave a small interval. Insert into the remaining loop after picking up the stitch on the fabric piece and the corresponding position on the edge of the lining. Slightly tighten. Repeat this process. Continue sewing the rest of this edge. Adjust the position as you sew. Prevent sewing crooked. When you reach the corner position, fold the next edge of the lining inward. Align at the corner position. Then pick up stitches on the fabric piece and sew it together with the folded lining. Ensure the corner position is sewn evenly and neatly. Continue using this method. Sew the entire edge. After completing, you can weave in the ends. Follow the texture of the edging. This is the method for adding the lining. To make the blanket flatter, you can iron the blanket on the wrong side. Up to this point, the making method for this blanket has been covered. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website, Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next episode.